My 5-year-old was dumped at the youth crisis center by my parents. We don't have space for Emily. Don't turn this into drama, the note read. Then they posted a happy picture captioned "Family First." I didn't shout. I took action. 3 days later, they called their lawyer in panic. My parents always warned me that life can change in a second, but I never pictured the second being a scrap of paper on the kitchen counter. I stood there staring at the note, like maybe the letters would rearrange themselves into something normal. Went to Costco or pizza in the oven. But they didn't change. The words stayed exactly the same. We don't have space for Emily. Don't turn this into drama. The house felt wrong. Too quiet. Emily's little sneakers were still by the front door, pink laces half untied. Her cereal bowl was in the sink with a ring of milk clinging to the sides. Her favorite stuffed fox sat on the couch, facing the TV like it had been watching cartoons with her this morning. Everything looked like my life. Except Emily was gone. "Em?" I called, even though I already knew she wasn't going to answer. "Em, baby?" Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock Mom insisted wasn't loud. I walked down the hallway. Emily's door was open. It shouldn't have been open. Her room was wrong too. The unicorn bedsheet was gone. The posters were gone. The shelf where she kept her crayons and broken plastic tiaras was empty. The closet doors stood wide open, hangers bare, floor completely cleared. The only thing left was a faint rectangle on the carpet where her toy box had been. I didn't think. I just spun around and nearly hit the doorframe again. They were all there. My mom, my dad, Jessica, sitting like they'd been waiting for me to discover the crime scene. "Where is she?" My voice wasn't even a voice. It was a scrape. Mom lifted her eyes like this was inconvenient. "Natalie, don't start." "Where is Emily?" I repeated. "Where is my daughter?" Dad exhaled through his nose. "You saw the note." "That wasn't a note," I said. "That was a threat disguised as handwriting." "Where is she?" Jessica leaned her hip against the counter, mug in hand like she was hosting a brunch I wasn't invited to. "Nat, you're spiraling. You need to breathe." "Tell me where my child is," I snapped. Mom's face didn't move. "She's fine. She's safe. The youth crisis center said they could take her right away." My stomach dropped so fast I actually reached for the wall. "You took her to a crisis center?" I whispered. "Without telling me?" "You were working," Mom said. "Like always. You can't do everything, Natalie. Someone had to step up." "Step up?" I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to me. "By making my daughter disappear?" Dad pushed his hands into his pockets like he was tired of supervising a tantrum. "You're not listening. This house has limits. We can't keep supporting you and Emily forever. It's draining. It's unfair to everyone." "To who?" I shot back. "To Jessica? To Aurora? To your wine budget?" Jessica's expression tightened. "Don't drag my family into your chaos. This is about you not coping." "Coping," I echoed. "Right. My 5-year-old is gone, and we're grading my coping skills." Mom stood, smoothing her sweater like she needed to look tidy for the announcement. "This is for the best. Emily will get stability, routine. You'll get a chance to reset your life without constantly drowning." "Where?" I demanded. "Which center?" Dad shook his head. "Don't make this harder. Just accept it. You bring that kid back here, you're out on the street. And believe me, out there, you won't last a week." I stared at him, at the man who'd taught me to ride a bike and told me monsters weren't real. "You think I'm afraid of being alone?" I asked quietly. "I've been alone in this house for years." Jessica rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Which center?" They exchanged a look, the kind that means she's not letting this go. Finally, Mom muttered the name and street like she was giving me directions to return a library book. I didn't thank her. I didn't say anything. I just grabbed the note, walked out, and slammed the door so hard the frame shook. The drive blurred. 1 second I was on our street, the next I was in front of a beige building with pastel handprints painted on the windows. The kind of place that tried too hard to feel comforting and landed squarely on Erie. I walked in, heart pounding so loud I almost couldn't hear myself speak. "My daughter," I said to the receptionist. "Emily. She was brought here this morning. I'm her mother." The woman blinked, startled. "Oh, your parents told us they lied," I cut in. "Where is she?" A second receptionist stood up. "Ma'am, we need to verify." "Verify what?" I snapped. "That I exist? That I didn't abandon my own child on a random Tuesday? My parents took her while I was at work and dumped her here. They left me a note." I slapped the note onto the desk. The receptionist flinched when she read it. A woman with a badge came out from a hallway. She looked like she'd been in too many rooms where someone was crying. "Come with me," she said. Her office had a box of tissues and a framed poster of clouds that said, "Every storm passes." I hated it immediately. "Ms. Natalie Dalton?" she asked. "Natalie is fine." "All right. Natalie, your parents said you asked them to place Emily here. They signed the intake." "I didn't ask for anything," I said. "I went to work. When I came home, my daughter was gone. They cleared out her room. They left me that—" I pointed at the note. "Like she was a returned Amazon package." She exhaled through her nose. "Okay, I hear you. We need to confirm custody." "I'm her mother," I said. "Full custody. No one else is on the paperwork. And unless you want to explain to CPS why you refuse to return a kidnapped 5-year-old, I need her brought out. Right now." The woman didn't argue. She left the room. A minute. 2. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then the door opened and Emily stepped inside. Her hair was messed up from stress fidgeting. Her cheeks were blotchy. She held her little backpack to her chest like a life jacket. When she saw me, she froze, then ran. "Mommy!" she cried, voice cracking. I caught her and held on like someone might try to pry her away again. She buried her face in my shoulder. I felt her breath hitching in little jerks. "They said you didn't want me," she whispered. My throat closed. "Never," I said. "Never, Em. I'm so sorry you were here even 1 minute." The staff member watched, eyes softening. "You can take her," she said quietly. "We'll finish the paperwork on our end." I nodded, too busy holding my child together to speak. Outside, the sunlight felt wrong, too bright for the day I'd had. Emily clung to my hand as we walked to the car. She was quiet in that way kids get when they're trying to be small. "We going home?" she asked. I opened the car door. "Not there," I said. "Not anymore." She nodded like she understood more than a 5-year-old should. I buckled her in, climbed behind the wheel, and just drove. No destination, just forward. At a stoplight, my phone buzzed. Without thinking, I tapped the notification. A photo filled the screen. My parents. My sister Jessica. Her 6-year-old daughter Aurora. All in our backyard. Aurora swinging on the swing that used to be Emily's. Mom smiling like an ad for Serenity. Dad flipping burgers. Jessica captioning it. "New beginnings. Family first." I stared at it until the car behind me honked. Then I put my phone screen down and kept driving. I didn't know where Emily and I would sleep. I didn't know how we'd afford anything. I didn't know who would help us or if anyone would. I just knew one thing. I wasn't going back. And 3 days later, the people who told me I wouldn't survive without them would learn exactly how wrong they were. If you'd asked my parents, they'd say Jessica and I were raised in the same house, with the same chances. Technically, That was true. Practically, it was like we grew up on different planets that occasionally shared a bathroom. Jessica was the test run that went perfectly. Honor roll, cheer captain, glossy hair, senior photos in a white dress at sunset. They paid for her degree, her wedding, the down payment on her first condo. When she got pregnant with Aurora, my mother cried happy tears and said things like, "Our family is finally complete." I got pregnant at 15. I didn't plan it. I didn't even really understand how to plan anything back then. I was a kid who still forgot her locker combination twice a month. One dumb decision. One boy who smiled like he knew secrets. And suddenly, I was holding a pregnancy test in the school bathroom with knees shaking so hard the stall door rattled. Telling the boy was easy. He panicked, apologized in a way that sounded like I'd dented his car, and vanished. That part hurts less with time. Telling my parents was the part I still feel in my bones. I stood in the living room while Jessica rocked newborn Aurora in this soft, pale blanket that looked like it belonged in an ad. Mom was fussing over them, adjusting the blanket, smoothing Jessica's hair, saying how motherhood had transformed her. I waited for a break in their joy. There wasn't one, so I forced one. "Mom," I said. "Dad, I need to tell you something." Mom turned just enough to look irritated. Dad didn't turn at all. "I'm pregnant," I said. The room went so still that even Aurora stopped making noise. Mom blinked once, like her brain had tripped. Then she laughed. One sharp, humorless burst. "No, you're not." "I am," I whispered. Dad finally twisted around. He stared at me the way someone stares at a stain they don't remember making. "You're 15, he said. Not shocked. Annoyed. 15, Natalie. What were you thinking?" My throat tightened. "I don't know. I wasn't thinking. But it's happening." Jessica shifted Aurora on her shoulder, avoiding my eyes. Even the baby seemed uncomfortable. Mom walked toward me slowly, like approaching something dangerous. "Tell me you're joking." "I'm not." Her face changed. Not into sadness, not worry, into anger. "You stupid girl," she hissed. "Jessica gives us a granddaughter and you, what, decide to try it too? Trying to steal her moment?" That sentence cut deeper than anything else. It wasn't just that she didn't want my baby, she didn't want me in the picture at all. "I'm not trying to steal anything," I said quietly. "I'm scared." "You should be," Dad snapped. "Who is he? What kind of lowlife knocks up a 15-year-old? I shook my head. "I'm not telling you. Of course you're not," Mom said. "Because you don't even know, do you? Wow, Natalie, I thought you had more sense." I felt heat climbing up my neck. "I know exactly who he is. I'm not naming him. That's my decision." "Well, here's ours," Dad said. "You're getting rid of it." My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "I'm keeping her." Jessica's head snapped up. "Why?" she asked, like I'd just announced I was joining a cult. Because I could already imagine the heartbeat, because I already felt protective, because something in me said, not this time, not this one. But I knew better than to say any of that out loud. Mom pointed to the hallway. "You think we're raising another kid? Absolutely not. If you're old enough to do this, you're old enough to handle the consequences." "You can't take me out of school," I said. "Oh, watch us," Mom replied. "You'll work in the restaurant, full time. You'll pay rent. You'll pay for diapers. You'll pay for formula. Jessica earned an education. You chose something else." Jessica bounced Aurora gently. "Mom, maybe she can still—" "She made her bed," Mom snapped. "She can lie in it." And that was that. No hug. No, "We'll figure this out." No, "We still love you." Just a sentence handed down like a verdict. The months after that blurred. Morning sickness, double shifts, Mom making a show of rolling her eyes whenever I sat down. Dad reminding me they weren't responsible for my mess. Jessica handing me baby clothes that Aurora had outgrown, placing them in my lap like charity. When Emily was born, Mom held her for 30 seconds, sighed, and passed her back. "She looks like you," she said. Not kindly. Dad never called himself Grandpa. Not once. I kept waiting for something to change, for them to thaw, for someone to look at Emily the way they looked at Aurora, with that soft, instinctive love that doesn't need to be earned. It never happened. Emily grew. I worked. Jessica thrived. My parents worshipped Aurora. They tolerated Emily. And me? I was background noise, a cautionary tale with a name. Looking back, every sign was there. The favoritism, the resentment, the small cuts that added up to wounds. I should have known they'd do something awful one day, but even with all that history, I didn't think they'd take it this far. I didn't think they would actually take my child. Not until the afternoon I came home from work, found the note, found the empty room, and realized the people who raised me were willing to throw away my daughter the second she became inconvenient. And that's when everything in me finally broke. Or maybe finally woke up. If you've never left home with a child and nowhere to go, here's what it feels like. Every street looks the same, and none of them lead anywhere. Brooke, a friend from school, saved us from sleeping in the car. We hadn't talked much in years. She messaged me sometimes, liked pictures of Emily, sent the occasional, "we should hang out." When I texted her, "Do you know anyone with a spare couch?" she sent back one word, "Mine." Her apartment was small and smelled like coffee beans and vanilla candles. She cleared off her couch, dug a spare blanket out of a closet, and handed Emily a mug of hot chocolate like it was an emergency kit. "You can stay a few days," she said. "We'll figure the rest out." I wanted to argue. I didn't. I was too tired. The next morning, while Emily drew pictures at the kitchen table, Brooke sat on her phone and fired off messages like a general organizing troops. "You've got restaurant experience," she said. "I know a girl who works at a cafe downtown. They're always short-staffed. Day shifts, mostly. You could work while Emily's at school. It's not glamorous, but it's a paycheck that doesn't come with your parents attached." It wasn't a plan, not really, but it was a starting line. I took the job. The cafe manager took one look at my raised-in-a-restaurant speed and put me on the schedule by the end of the week. It was exhausting, but it was honest. No sighs when I clocked in, no lectures about being lucky to have this. Just coffee, customers, and sore feet. For the first time in years, I could almost see a version of the future that was mine. On the third night at Brooks, when Emily had finally fallen asleep on a pile of pillows, my phone buzzed with a notification I almost ignored. A message request from someone I didn't know. "Hi. I hope this isn't weird. My name is Joanna. I believe you knew my son Ethan." I stared at it so long the screen dimmed. I could have ignored it. Part of me wanted to. The name felt like a bruise. Instead, I typed, "Yeah." I did. "Why?" The reply came fast. "I know this is a lot. Ethan passed away a few months ago. Before he died, he told us there might be a child. He didn't know for sure. He said he treated you badly and regretted it. He gave us your name and asked us to try to reach out if we ever found you. If I'm wrong, I'm so sorry to bother you. But if I'm not, could we talk?" I read it 3 times. Ethan was dead. He'd talked about me. He'd regretted it. It didn't fix anything. It did crack something open. I told Brooke I had to meet someone. I left Emily with her, kissed her forehead, and took the bus across town. Joanna's house looked like the kind of place my parents would have driven past slowly just to complain about property taxes. Big, with a wide porch and actual columns. There were roses climbing a trellis and a brass knocker on the door that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. A man in his late 50s, Thomas, as I'd soon learn, opened the door. He had Ethan's eyes, but softer. "Natalie?" he asked. "Yes." He smiled like he'd been holding his breath for months. "Come in. Joanna's in the living room." The living room had paintings on the walls and shelves full of books and family photos. Ethan as a kid, Ethan at graduation, Ethan on a horse with a helmet slightly crooked. My stomach turned. Joanna stood up when she saw me. She looked tired in the way grief exhausts you from the inside out. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Please, sit." I sat on the edge of a very nice couch and held my hands together so they wouldn't shake. "I won't ask you any questions you don't want to answer," she said. "I just need to know. Did you have a child with my son?" There are 100 ways to pretend. I was too tired for any of them. "Yes," I said. "Her name is Emily. She's 5. Joanna closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, they were wet. "Thank you," she whispered. Thomas cleared his throat. "Ethan told us about you before he died," he said. "He said he'd been a coward, that he'd pushed you into something you didn't want, that he'd asked you to take care of it, and when you didn't, he ran. He was ashamed. He didn't know if you'd kept the baby. He just kept saying, 'If she did, she's out there alone because of me.'" I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to be angry he got a deathbed redemption arc when I got lectures and double shifts. Part of me was weirdly relieved he hadn't just moved on and forgotten I existed. "There's something else," Joanna added. "Ethan's grandmother left a trust. It was written so that any children he had would inherit if something happened to him." Thomas picked up the thread. "We don't have other grandchildren," he said. "If Emily is his, then the trust is hers. We've spoken to a lawyer. We'd need a DNA test, of course, to make it official. But we wanted to talk to you first, not behind your back." It was too much information layered over a life that still smelled like Brooke's couch and cafe steam. "A trust," I repeated. "A substantial one," Joanna said carefully. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Nothing you don't want to give," Joanna said. "We want to know Emily. We want to help. We can't change what Ethan did, but we can try to do right by his daughter, and by you, if you'll let us." I believed her. I don't know how. Maybe it was the way she said daughter, like it mattered. They introduced me to Mr. Donovan the next day. He wore a gray suit and glasses and talked like every sentence could be evidence later. "With your permission," he said, "we'll arrange a DNA test. If it confirms paternity, as we expect, the trust fund will be transferred into an account in Emily's name. As her guardian, you'll be able to manage it under certain conditions, and Joanna and Thomas are prepared to offer housing and support if you choose." Housing. Support. Words my parents had only ever used as weapons. I signed the consent forms. My hands still shook, but this time it wasn't from fear alone. If life were fair, the story would have ended with the DNA test. A tidy little bow. Me, Emily, Joanna, Thomas, all smiling awkwardly across a dining table like one of those insurance commercials. But life wasn't fair, and 3 days after the test, the real nightmare started. It began quietly, the way thunderstorms sometimes start with that weird pressure drop you only notice if you're paying attention. Suddenly, my phone was full of messages I didn't understand. "Are you okay? Your parents are devastated. Praying for your healing. You didn't have to run away." Run away? I was literally wiping tables at the cafe and eating leftover muffins for dinner. Running away would have required energy. Then Jessica posted something vague and melodramatic, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Sometimes doing the right thing breaks your heart. And people commented things like, "You're so strong," and "Poor Aurora, this is so hard." It took me a full hour to realize the hard thing was apparently me existing. Then Joanna called. Her voice was gentle, but too careful, like she was holding a fragile box and wasn't sure if it was empty or full of snakes. "Natalie Dalton, we received a message from your parents." My stomach dropped. People only use your full name when something's wrong. No one ever says Natalie Dalton before offering you free cookies. "What did they say?" I asked. There was a pause. Not long, but long enough for my heart to start mapping escape routes. "They implied you might have been struggling," she said softly. "Emotionally." Another pause. "And that you recently abandoned Emily." My mouth went dry. "What?" "They said they rescued her," Joanna continued, voice cracking. "They said the note was forged. They attached screenshots, statements. They sounded very concerned." For a second, the room around me blurred. Brooke had to say my name twice before I remembered I had a body. "They're lying," I whispered. "I want to believe you," Joanna said. "I do, but this is serious, and with the trust, we need to be careful. We need to understand what happened." My parents hadn't just spread rumors. They'd gone for the nuclear option. Make everyone doubt me. Even the people who barely knew me, the ones who actually wanted to help. I hung up and stared at my hands for a long time. They looked like her hands. The hands of a girl who'd carried plates at a restaurant since she was 16, who'd never been given the benefit of the doubt. If they could convince Joanna and Thomas, they could convince anyone. The next morning, the official hit landed on Brooke's doormat. A letter, thick envelope, lawyer's logo, my full name printed like a threat. Petition for emergency custody. I read the first paragraph and had to sit down. According to them, I had kidnapped Emily, abandoned her at the Youth Crisis Center, forged a note, fled the family home, endangered my child, manipulated Ethan's family for money, and was emotionally unstable, historically irresponsible, and unfit to parent. Brooke put a hand on my shoulder. "Nat, what are you going to do?" What was I going to do? I was going to fight. Even if the fight killed me. I took every dollar I had, plus a loan I had no business taking, and hired a lawyer. A real one. The kind who didn't blink when I explained the whole story in the span of one breath. He closed the file slowly. "Your parents are thorough," he said. "But lies often look polished because they've been rehearsed." "Great," I muttered. "Glad they rehearsed." We prepared for court in Brooke's living room. Emily colored at the coffee table, humming softly. Every so often she'd look up and ask if we could go to the park later. I kept saying maybe, even though I didn't know if I'd have her next week. Nights were worse. I lay awake listening to Brooke's refrigerator hum, imagining every possible ending. My parents winning. Joanna and Thomas deciding I was too unstable. Losing everything I'd spent 5 years trying to build. The fear was a physical thing, heavy, constant, unanswered. Finally, the court date came. Family court looks nothing like TV. It's too bright, too beige, too full of people trying to decide which version of a story is least painful. My parents sat together, all sad eyes and trembling hands. Jessica sat next to them, Aurora on her lap like a prop. Their lawyer wore a suit so crisp it practically crackled. My lawyer leaned over. "Remember," he whispered, "you don't have to outperform them. Just tell the truth." Easy for him to say. He wasn't raised by people who could lie like they breathed. The hearing started. My mother went first. Watching her cry on command was like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat. Impressive, if you ignored the number of times you'd seen her do it. "She abandoned Emily," she said softly. "We saved her." My father nodded solemnly. Jessica dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Then the friends came up. The church lady beamed at the judge like she was teaching Sunday school. "She's always been unstable," she said sweetly. The grandparents stepped up. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. My turn came. I stood, palms sweating. "My parents took my daughter while I was working," I said. "They lied about me. They took her to a youth crisis center without my consent. I picked her up shaking and crying." My voice cracked once. I didn't apologize. The judge studied me for a long moment, then set down her pen. "I'd like to hear from the child." Everything inside me froze. The bailiff brought Emily in. She looked tiny in the doorway, pink leggings, messy ponytail, clutching her stuffed fox like it was the only stable thing in the universe. Her eyes found mine immediately. That saved me. The judge leaned forward. Her voice softened in a way she hadn't used with any adult in the room. "Hi, Emily. Would you feel okay answering a few questions?" Emily nodded, hugging her fox. "Do you remember being at the youth crisis center?" Another nod. "How did you get there?" She hesitated, glancing at me for permission. I nodded back. "Grandma took me," she said. The air left the room. My mother's shoulders locked. Jessica went white. The judge kept her tone steady. "And how did you feel there?" Emily's voice got smaller. "Scared. I cried a lot." I felt something in my chest twist hard. "And what happened next?" the judge asked gently. "Mommy came," Emily whispered. "She found me. I thought she was gone, but she wasn't. I want to stay with Mommy." Simple words, devastating ones. The judge didn't rush. She let the silence do the work. Even the grandparents didn't dare breathe. "Thank you, Emily," the judge said. "You can sit with your mother." Emily walked straight to me. I lifted her onto my lap, her small hand gripping my shirt like she was anchoring both of us. The judge turned to my parents. "Do you wish to challenge the child's statement?" My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Dad stared straight ahead. Jessica looked at the floor like it might swallow her. The judge nodded once, made a final note, and read the decision. "Custody will remain with the mother, Natalie. The grandparents' petition is denied. Their allegations are unsupported and contradicted by the child's statement." My whole body exhaled. Emily looked up at me. "We can go home now?" "Yeah," I said. "We can." Outside the courtroom, my mother tried one last time. "Natalie, this is a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "This is the truth finally catching up." I didn't wait for whatever came next. Emily and I walked out together, her fox bouncing under her arm. They'd spent months trying to rewrite our story. Today, a 5-year-old wrote the ending for them, and it was the only version that ever mattered. Sometimes I still think about that courtroom. Not the verdict, just the moment Emily climbed into my lap like she'd known all along we would win. Life moved fast after that. The DNA confirmation finalized the trust, $2.3 million set aside for Emily by Ethan's great-grandmother. I became the trustee, which still feels surreal. It's not mansion money, but it's we're safe forever money. It's I can finish school and she can go to college money. We rent a sunny little townhouse now. Emily has her own room painted yellow and a bookshelf that isn't shared with anyone else's child. Emily visits Joanna and Thomas every week, holidays too. She runs into their arms yelling, "Grandma! Grandpa!" like she's been doing it her whole life. She never mentions my parents, not once. It's like her brain quietly deleted the people who tried to delete her. And my parents? Their restaurant shut down after the truth leaked. Boycotts, bad reviews, empty tables. They sold the house, moved into a rental, and apparently can't keep up with bills. A cousin hinted they were hoping I might help. I blocked the number. I don't owe them a single cent. So what do you think? Did it go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories.